Hi, God bless y'all. So this is from Five Lies of the Century. This chapter is 4, When Justice Becomes Injustice. We had a total shift in our culture. It went from being based on the Bible, which it is, which calls for personal responsibility, to being very humanistic, which shifts blame. The myth, real justice can only be served when we understand why people commit crimes. It's really not going to help at all. In the humanistic vein, the victim becomes a criminal and the criminal is perceived as the victim, which is so true. It's just stunning when you look into the court cases that are being tried and the verdicts. Like the cheerleader who murdered her kid and set her on fire, and then she gets 7 days time served. Wow. Natural law versus the law today. Natural law, the universal concept of justice derived from the Bible. Humanistic philosophy, it hides behind the guise of psychology and masquerades as human compassion. Psychology today. Psychology is very dangerous. It's a fascinating book. I read it long ago. Holy Lives, Holy People. And it talks about how psychology is used to replace God. Which is very much so, because you go from, which is the hoot, because people be like, oh my gosh, you go to like a priest and confess your sins, that's so queer, and yet they have no qualm of going to a psychologist, paying through the nose, and confessing everything. Let's see. Did you know that commentaries on Commentaries on the Law of England by Blackstone, premier legal authority within early American history, is the third most quoted individual by the founders. The primary source, though, and the primary source of what our founders sourced was the Bible, and also Blackstone, his primary source was also the Bible. Bible is great because it's not a container of milk. It never goes bad. It's always relevant. Gotta love that term. No human laws are of any validity if contrary to the divine law. Secularization of today's courts. The most quoted book by our founding fathers is the most censored book in America. It's stunning when you go through this book. It's just stunning. I'm just highlighting certain things. It's heartbreaking how we've just been stripped of our heritage, and then we're like invaded with other people going, oh, they have real heritage. Oh, no, we do. We have heritage too. Very good holy heritage. And it talks about how distorted justice will strangle peace and safety of America. It's stunning. There's one chapter in here that talks how, 75% of crimes in America are committed by 6% of people? So many horrific crimes, like that homeless woman this summer who was murdered by that man. If he had been given the death penalty, or at least life in prison, after killing the first woman, the homeless woman, she wouldn't have had to have gone through that horrific way of death. The lack of justice escalates criminal intent and activity. It fuels the crime rate because there is no deterrent to evil. Court cases that ought to be straightforward often degrades into what Isaiah calls a crooked road of legal gibberish and plea bargaining. Justice is overgrown by a jungle of bureaucracy, and culture knows no peace. The number of criminals actually in prison per 1,000 arrests for violent crimes fell to 50% during that decade, which is the 1960s, plummeting from 299 per 1,000 cases in 1960 to 170 per 1,000 in 1970. The courts went soft on crime. Today, 6% of paroled criminals are responsible for 75% of violent crimes. Every day, 12,000 crimes are committed by criminals who did not complete their sentence. Not okay. I like the Bible. If you read the Old Testament, God didn't have any prisons. The victim's family either had the right to kill you if it was a violent crime, sexual crime, and if it wasn't, then you had to make amends to the person. Recently, 13-year-old career criminal was arrested in Fort Lauderdale for the burglary of a convenience store. It was his 57th offense in 4 years, including 10 other burglaries, a dozen car thefts, 3 armed robberies, and 9 grand larcenies. However, under Florida law, this hardened young man could only be held 21 days, and he was released in 2 days. Why? Solomon would say evil men do not understand justice. Because our culture has ignored the indispensable support of religion and morality that George Washington spoke about. We have lost as a nation our common sense. Heartbreaking. Restoring justice. President Reagan's Secretary of Education, William Bennett, once said, "The hard truth is that in a free society, the ultimate responsibility rests with the people themselves. The good news is that what has been self-inflicted can be self-corrected." He's absolutely right. It isn't too late to restore justice to our land. But how can we? Demand that justice is served. Demand judges fulfill the biblical mandate of justice. Pray for our nation and its leadership. Be an individual light for society. We definitely need justice on so many levels, especially from the wealthy, who for some odd reason are not abiding by the laws of this land that are for everyone, not just the common man. Alrighty, bye-bye.